What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Stokastic NHL Strategy Show. I'm your host, Josh Harris. 5-gamer here tonight. A couple teams on a back-to-back. 10-gamer last night. There were multiple hat tricks. The winning lineup had a 0.0% Casey Cizikas 36 burger in it. Yeah, it was another early log off for me, but, I'm still trying to get back into the groove of things after I took pretty much all of December off. Yeah, 5-game slate here tonight. Joining me to break it down in his Habs get-up, Slim Cliffy. What's going on?
Yeah, 2 third-period goals for Cizikas. One with under a minute left when it was already 8-0. And he got a block bonus. That's just, what do you do? Isles win 9-0 as Ilya Sorokin puts up a 44-save shutout. It's safe to say things are going super well for the Devils. Bruins gave up 7 to Seattle last night. I think a couple were with the empty net. Still not great. That happens. Connor McDavid scored a sick goal last night. He scores a lot of sick goals, but that power play goal where they kind of dropped it to him as he was coming full speed through the neutral zone into the offensive zone, that was just such a nice setup and such a nice goal from him. What a night. 11 goals in that Bruins cracking game. Carolina puts up 6 on Dallas. Obviously, the Islanders 9-0 with that Sorokin shutout. It was a absolutely wild night. Anthony Duclair with a 5-point game. He had 13 points in 39 games, and then he gets 5 last night.
Natural hat trick too, right?
Yeah. I don't know if it was natural or not, but yeah, it was early. That's for sure. That was a pretty wild night in the NHL. We'll see what tonight holds. Not expecting the same, but I guess you never know when you have the Chicago Blackhawks, San Jose Sharks, Washington Capitals on the board. So we'll see, but interesting little 5-gamer we got.
Yeah, and before we get into the slate, again, we appreciate all the support you guys give us. The affiliates with the new site is still being sorted out. So for now, we have a promo code that tracks signups for us. It is promo code PuckLuck. That will get you 15% off any subscription. So check that out. Can we get back to slandering the Blues now that Josh is back? Here's the thing. We were talking about it, me and Cliffy and I, for the experts who like to correct my grammar. If they win tonight, depending on other games, they'll be 1 point out of a playoff spot. So calm your catering trays, Haas. But let's get into this slate. First up, we have the Dallas Stars with a 3.1 total heading into Washington. The Capitals have a 3 total. Protas and Wilson are still out. Dallas going Rantanen, Johnston, Duchesne, Robertson, Hintz, Bork.
Should probably say this is absolutely one of the games we have to watch for changes at warm-up, right? Because they played last night. Bork was moved off the top line, I think, for the second half of the third period or something like that. They moved Duchesne up. They had different guys playing with Rantanen, and Rantanen went in different spots. Dallas has lost. I think they've lost 6 in a row now. I suspect we're going to see some lineup changes once warm-ups start.
Yeah, I tend to agree there. Washington going Ovechkin, Strome, Beauvillier, Leonard, McMichael, Sourdif. So Sourdiff. No, it's Sourdif. I'll start on the Dallas side just because it's a little bit of unknown here. They played yesterday, but with Wilson and Protas out, there's just so many people out of place here. So, they're probably I didn't look exactly what they did the last game because they were home with Charlie Lindgren. Did they send out the Dowd line a bunch against Top Comp?
Yeah, that was that 7-4 game against Anaheim. The Dowd line, most of their ice time was just kind of spread across the top 6. It was like they didn't hard match against the Carlson line. They just put them out against the top 6. they kind of kept the McMichael Sordif line going out against the second and third lines. So like they didn't really hard match anything, which is kind of, I mean, that's both good and bad. There aren't really any matchup concerns, I don't think, in this game.
No, but like there, I mean, that Dowd line hasn't been great defensively anyway, but the Strome-Ovechkin-Beauvillier line isn't good defensively either. If you assume the Dowd line is going to go out against the top six, and you'll see the Sordif line against the middle six, they try to keep the – I would also assume that, Strome-Ovechkin, they'll see some top line, they'll see some third line, they'll be out against a whole bunch. It's just like, what do you want to do at Dallas? It is a good power play spot, even if it is Logan Thompson and net. Like this team they're missing guys. They've been rough defensively of late. You have to see the lines, right? But I feel like you could do some sort of really expensive power play stack just in a placeholder, and then you can react to the news and it will get cheaper. You know what I mean? The first person I'd obviously put in is Jason Robertson. He is 8,800 here tonight. That's very expensive. So like, you could do like Hintz Robertson Rantanen, Hintz Robertson Johnston, something like that, and just react to the news because, as Cliffy said, they have lost a bunch of games in a row. I would imagine the coach gets a little desperate and does some weird things with the lines. It would not shock me to see them load up a line and just, force feed them 22 minutes here tonight. So, that's why I would build expensive with Dallas and react to the news. So it would be the main power play guys, just a matter of who you want to put in. I'd obviously build around Jason Robertson, but that is up to you. I think, was it Casey DeSmith or Ottinger last night?
It was Ottinger last night.
So it's Casey DeSmith here tonight. Not that he's been bad. It's kind of like Hellebuck to Comrie, kind of, not that extreme, but I know Sordif had like a 9,000 DK point game the other night. I'm pretty sure DeSmith is, like, going back to last year, I'm pretty sure DeSmith has just been straight up better than Ottinger. Yeah, he has been a very good backup.
Yeah, so I'm not that worried about it. I'm not changing anything based on who starts for Dallas in that.
Yeah, me either. That top line, Ovechkin, Strome, Beauvillier, 17,700, 13.1% top two, 8.2% projected ownership. Like, they have been good offensively at 5-on-5. It is a big sample. With them, not always seeing the top competition at home, they're going to avoid Lindell Heiskanen for at least some of the game, which is good for them because, after that, it's a big difference. So I don't mind Washington 1 here. Obviously in that range, you have, Dallas, Bork, Hintz, and Robertson are together. It's in that range. There's Montreal 1, who's a little bit cheaper. There's new Ottawa lines in that range. It's just like, do I really want to prioritize the Caps when you have Montreal with a higher total, you have Utah with a higher total, you have the Kings late with a higher total, Dallas in this same game has a higher total, you know what I mean? So if I was going to play Washington, it would be that top line. I don't really want to chase with that second line at 13,400. It's a little bit more than a filler, right? If they're like 12-1, 11-9, something like that, it feels really chasing 4,100 Sordif after his 5-point game. Like, if you want to add Ryan Leonard over Beauvillier for more power play, you could do that. But it would be Washington 1 for me. It'd be Dallas power play just because we don't know the lines and we're expecting changes.
Yeah. I was going through this game. I was looking to see how teams have been performing lately. So I went back to December 1st. Since December 1st, Washington is 29th by expected goals against per 60 in league, and Dallas is 30th. Now, the goaltending's been fine, but their goals against are both still like around the middle of the league. I'm pretty sure the Caps are giving up the second most shots per game of any team in the NHL over the last 6 games, or the Capitals are giving up the most shots per game over any team in the NHL not named the Seattle Kraken going back to December 1st. Like, these have not been very good defensive teams for a while, and I think you're kind of seeing that in Dallas's games lately. Like, even when they are winning games, like 3 goals against San Jose, 3 goals against Anaheim, and then their last 6 all losses, 4+ goals against in all of them. Like, these Dallas had shaky metrics over the first 25 games of the season, but they were shooting like 20% as a team. So it didn't, and their power play was scoring over a goal per game. So it didn't really matter. That, like, those things aren't necessarily true anymore. So I do think it's like a pretty solid matchup for both sides. I think that's why you're seeing a 3 total for both teams. It's the only game where both teams have an implied goal total of at least 3. So I would expect some goals here. The question is, where do you want to go? Like, I don't mind Washington 1 from the perspective that they've generally been good this year. Even as their play has slipped of late, they're still generating 3.2 expected goals per 60 since the American Thanksgiving, which is obviously pretty good, but they're shooting under 6%, so the goal scoring hasn't been that high. But they're getting good ice time. Like, this is positive leverage for a line that's been really good at 5-on-5 this year. Strome and Ovechkin are the only Caps line with at least 2 players on it on the top power play unit. They're skating 17 to 19 minutes. Strome and Ovechkin at the high end towards 19 because of the injuries. I honestly don't mind Washington 1 here. Like, if people want to go back to Washington 2, like, I can't say no, right? Just because that line is still relatively cheap. You get Leonard on the top power play. Leonard and Connor McMichael have been above average offensively when they played together this season. Like, they're going to get 17 to 19 minutes as well, maybe even 20 in Connor McMichael's case. So, like, using them as a filler, I think, is perfectly fine. I would be tempted just to go to Washington 1, just because if I can get a top line on a 5-game slate from one of the highest scoring teams in the league this season at single-digit ownership, I think that's what's appealing to me. So for me, it's Washington 1. Again, if you want to dip down to Washington 2, that's perfectly fine. I think Washington 3, like the Dowd line, would also be in play. It's just, who are you using them with, right? Because Calgary, Montreal, St. Louis, Chicago, you don't need them for them. You don't need them for Utah. You don't really need them for Ottawa, I guess, depending what you do. Like, it's not really a need to get that cheap here. So I think for me, it goes Washington 1, then Washington 2. On the Dallas side, like, we'll have to see at warmups. I kind of agree. I would just go with whatever line Jason Robertson is on. Jason Robertson has the highest projection of any winger on the board here tonight, second highest projection of any skater behind Macklin Celebrini. You probably want to focus around him and build around him. Like, him and Hintz and Bork had been good together, 3.6 expected goals, 75 shot attempts per 60. Hintz hasn't been doing a lot lately, though. Hintz has 19 shots in his last 15 games. Like, this isn't a guy that puts up a lot of shot volume anyway. That's pretty bad shot. That's very bad shot volume for a guy skating next to Jason Robertson, basically at every single strength. So I would start at least Robertson. If you want just one-off Robertson or one-off Rantanen, I think that's perfectly fine. This is what I wonder, though, is like, this is a pretty good power play spot for Dallas because the Caps do take penalties, right? 3.3 times shorthanded per game over the last 5 weeks. It's the 8th highest rate in the league. It's actually right behind Dallas. Over the course of the season, 3.1 per game. It's 12th in the league. We know how good Dallas's power play can be, has been basically all year. Even the downturn for Dallas's power play over the last 5 weeks is 12 goals per 60 minutes, which would be like one of the top marks in the league over the full season. Like, that's them with a declining power play, which is absolutely absurd. So I always say, if I'm focusing on the Dallas power play guys, I have to get Wyatt Johnston in because he's the guy that is tasked with the zone entries. And if you have the guy that has the puck when the team enters the offensive zone, that's often where the points come from. So honestly, even though they may not be on the same even strength line, if I'm playing Dallas tonight, I probably start with Johnston and Robertson in my lineup and kind of go from there. So we'll see what warmups look like. At the very least, I have interest in Robertson and Johnston as a two-man here tonight. Maybe you can stick in a cheap guy like Maverick Bork, might be with him. Maybe Sam Steele moves up or something like that, so you can kind of lower the average cost per player. But it's absolutely Robertson and Johnston that I have interest in from the Dallas side. But it's the Washington side I'm more interested in, generally speaking. So Washington 1, Dallas Robertson line, I guess, and then Washington 2.
Yep. Message in the chat. Just a heads up, there is no projections for Montreal and FanDuel for tonight. I will pass that along to Jake. He will get that updated when he can, which would probably be soon. But thank you. Calgary Pilot Lights with a 2.8 total. Heading into Montreal, the Canadiens have a 3.3 total. Calgary going Kadri, Farabee, Zari, Backlund, Coleman, Coronado, Huberdeau, Sharangovich, Frost. Montreal going Caulfield, Suzuki, Texier, Slavkovsky, Kapanen, Demidov, and then Bolduc, Deneau, Gallagher. Pretty interesting game. It's a good power play spot on both sides. I don't really think it's a great power play spot for the Flames just because their power play isn't great.
I was going to say, when's Calgary ever in a good power play spot?
I can never stand how cheap Calgary is. They aren't getting a ton of ownership, which, like, at the least is fine, because usually on a 5-game slate in a decent matchup, they're getting like 12, 13%. For me, it would probably be Sharangovich, Frost, Huberdeau at 10,800. They're coming in with the lowest ownership of the three lines, 1.3%, just because, they're going to see a bunch of that Kapanen, Slavkovsky, Demidov line probably isn't the best defensively. Maybe they see some Suzuki. I don't really know. I think Marty St. Louis is smart enough to not send out Suzuki against Backlund Coleman for the majority of the game. But, I do think that Kapanen line will see some of that Frost line. You get 2 of the 3 on the top power play unit. They're cheap. Let you get in Dallas power play if you wanted, or whatever else expensive, Ottawa power play, whatever. I think a one-off Kadri always makes some sense. If you want to use the Backlund Coleman Coronado line, like, they've been scoring. They're fine at 12-8. Like, I don't have an issue in general with Calgary here tonight. I just don't love using them. At least they're not super chalk, which makes it easier to click them in. Still doesn't make it easy to click them in. And I would probably just go to Frost, Huberdeau, Sharangovich if you want to turn it into more of a power play thing. You can add Kadri or whatever, or Coronado, or just do one-off Coronado, one-off Kadri, something like that. I don't particularly love the Calgary side. Montreal is more interesting to me. The top line's coming in with a lot of ownership, though. Suzuki, Caulfield, Texier, 16,800. 16% top 2, 17.6% projected ownership. A little bit of negative leverage, nothing too crazy. They've been, fairly good in a small sample with Texier there. It is a good power play spot, and that's the thing that I'm most interested in here. I know the power play had struggled at times. It looks like it's starting to turn back around. What you can do is leave off Texier, add in Demidov, add in Slavkovsky. Becomes a little bit more expensive. It's still going to be well under 20K. Get a little bit lower ownership in a high ownership game. You can leave them as they are. I would just want to get more power play guys in. I think the second line is fine as well, just because you get Slavkovsky and Demidov on the top power play. The one thing that does concern me there is I would want either Suzuki or Caulfield in that stack. So I'd be more likely to turn that into a power play stack as well. So at that point, I'll just go Suzuki, Caulfield, and add in one of Demidov or Slavkovsky and go about my day. So power play stack on the Montreal side. Calgary 3. I think, I don't really want to full stack anything. It'd probably be a Kadri or Coronado one-off.
Yeah, the interesting thing for me about Calgary is like, we'll get to this Los Angeles Kings later. Spoiler alert, the Los Angeles Kings are mega chalk here tonight. But if you're looking for lines that are going to get minutes that are in a decent spot and you don't want to play a super chalk Los Angeles, I think Calgary, and we'll get to Chicago later, Calgary and Chicago are your two options. I mean, maybe St. Louis. Just St. Louis, that St. Louis-Chicago game in general. But it would be that game plus the Calgary Flames, like if you want to get away from the Kings. So that's where I think Calgary can be useful. But like, this is all things equal, this is a decent power play spot for the Flames, but the power play is just not very good. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, it's been well below average all season. If you look at just the last 5 weeks, the Calgary power play is clicking at under 16%. Over the course of the season, they're dead last in the NHL by power play percentage. So not overly concerned about power play stacking here for Calgary. Like, for me, I would probably just want to go to what I think would be the best line. And for me, that'd be Backlund, Coleman, Coronado. Backlund, Coleman, regardless of who's been the third winger, whether it was Samuel Honzek earlier in the season, Connor Zary spent a bunch of games there. It's been Matt Coronado over the last couple of weeks. Whoever it's been, they've been able to control the play, which is, nothing new for a Backlund Coleman line. The expected goals aren't super high. And Coronado, his shot volume has actually gone down lately, but I think that speaks more to Backlund and Coleman's willingness to shoot rather than Coronado's lack of willingness to do that, let's say. They're all skating 16 to 18 minutes per game, especially with Coronado getting the top power play time. Priced under 13K, coming in with positive leverage. Top two stack of 4.6% is not nothing. And, I suspect they're one line that's not going to see a whole bunch of Nick Suzuki. Like, I agree with you on that. So once you get them out against, the Demidov line, like you said, which has been really good offensively, but it does give up a lot of chances defensively. Maybe they're going to get some time against the fourth line for Montreal, which is just absolutely a horror show. I kind of like Backlund, Coleman, Coronado here as a filler. Like, you can put them in with, your Dallas stack or San Jose, or we'll talk about Ottawa, like Washington for sure, if you want to play expensive defensemen. So I kind of like the Backlund, Coleman, Coronado line. I think they're going to be able to control the play against the depths from the Habs here tonight. So Calgary 3 for me from that side. The Montreal side is a lot more interesting because I do think they have at least 2, if not 3, very playable lines. Like the top line you mentioned with Texier, 2.9 expected goals for per 60 with him on the top line, 3.7 actual goals for at 5-on-5. Like they've been good together. Texier doesn't get a ton of ice time, but Caulfield's been close to 20 minutes over the last 5 games. I think they've had 3 of their last 5 go to overtime, so take that with a grain of salt. But Nick Suzuki over 22 minutes a game. You do get 2 out of the 3 on the top power play unit. Calgary's penalty kill is not very good. They don't take a ton of penalties either, which is the one concern that I have. 6th lowest rate of penalties per game in the league over the last 5 weeks. Around league average over the course of the season. So I don't know if Montreal just racks up the power play opportunities here tonight. But Montreal 1 perfectly fine. Montreal 2 is where things really get interesting for me. Over the last 5 games, Montreal has 5 forwards skating over 17 minutes a game, and 3 of them are from the second line. Kapanen at the low end around 17.5 minutes, and then Demidov around 18 and Slavkovsky at around 20. I looked at their numbers. I think I mentioned it on the show last week, but since they got home from that Western Conference road trip where they had like Utah, Vegas, Colorado 3 games in a row or something like that, 2.9 expected goals for, 4.2 actual goals for. I wrote an article, or I guess it was in my newsletter on Tuesday. Check out my Twitter or Blue Sky. I linked to my newsletter in there. It's free, sent out every week on Tuesday mornings. Over the last season and a half, Yuri Slafkovsky is like top 20 in the league for creating scoring chances off the fewest shot attempts. Like scoring chances per shot attempt, he's like 20th in the league, like and higher than Suzuki or Caulfield. I think the last 2 months he's just turned into like he's a monster. If you watch him on the ice, he's been unbelievably good. Obviously, Demidov is so good at creating just absolutely something out of nothing. At 14,600, they're kind of in no man's land. Like they're an option if you want to play like San Jose and then still play an expensive defenseman. I'd be kind of tempted to take Kapanen out and put in one of Suzuki or Caulfield, probably Suzuki, just to make it more of a power play stack. Because Montreal power play 12 goals per 60 minutes with this current setup. They've been really, really, really good, like as good as Dallas has been over the last 6 weeks. So I think I have a little bit more interest in Montreal too. It's really the Montreal power play guys that I have the interest in overall. Certainly have interest in Backman, Coleman, Coronado on the Calgary side as well.
St. Louis Blues with a 2.8 total heading into Chicago. The Blackhawks have a 2.7. St. Louis going Thomas, Kyrou, Neighbors, Buchnevich, Snuggerud, Shen. Chicago going Bertuzzi, Burakovsky, Green, Donato, Dickinson, Mikheyev. So I'll start on the Blues side here. That top line has been pretty good in a smallish sample this season. You know, the Blues have had a ton of injuries. They haven't had a set lineup a lot this season. But, you know, Thomas, Kyrou, Neighbors has been pretty good. They are 15,000, 6.8% top two, 7% projected ownership. There's no real matchup concerns. Yes, they're going to see Dickinson, Mikheyev, Donato. But, you know, they haven't been the Dickinson line of a few years ago where, like, the Blackhawks were one of the worst defensive teams in the NHL, and Dickinson was, like, holding teams to, like, prime Jordan Staal numbers. Like, it's not that. So, like, I honestly do not mind Thomas, Kyrou, Neighbors here tonight if you're doing some sort of mid-range build. You know, they're right in line with their top two. Get 2 of the 3 on one power play unit. Not that, like, you stack the Blues for the power play, but, you know, they're controlling the play. They're creating a decent amount. It is the Blackhawks, you know what I mean? So that is a bump there. So it would be Thomas, Kyrou, Neighbors for me. You want to go to Shen, Snuggerud, Buchnevich because they're 11,400. Like, they have not been good in a small sample. So, like, I guess you could add in Buchnevich or Snuggerud to the top line to make it a power play stack. But, like, we really power play stacking the Blues on the road here tonight? I don't know. I'm not. But, like, I guess you could to make it a little bit cheaper. So it really would be the Blues top line for me. On the Chicago side, I honestly think there's 2 playable lines here. Dickinson, Mikheyev, Donato at 9,600. Like, there's not a huge need for them tonight unless you're power play stacking Dallas or Ottawa or something like that. 3.4% top two. Like, that's a really high top two percentage for a line under 10K. 5.7% projected owners. Excuse me, a little bit of negative leverage, but in almost 120 minutes, 3 expected goals for per 60. They're controlling the play. You know, the one thing that does concern me is, like, you know, the Thomas line, when they are going well, are very good defensively. That is the one thing that does concern me. But, you know, if you can get a line under 10K for the minutes that they're going to get, I don't mind them. But my preferred line, honestly, is Green, Burakovsky, Bertuzzi, 11,300. 4% top two stack, 5.6% projected ownership. In a fairly small sample, they have been very good together. You They get decent minutes. And the big thing here is they're going to avoid that Thomas line. They're going to see a fair bit of that second and third line matchups, and that Shen line has been atrocious defensively. So, they're priced as a filler. You get Burakovsky and Bertuzzi on the top power play unit. For 11,300, I think you can do a lot worse than Green, Burakovsky, and Bertuzzi here tonight.
Yeah, I agree with you on Chicago too. Like if you are doing some sort, and by the way, I checked earlier, you can't straight up power play stack Dallas. Like you can't stack unless you play Phoenix Copley and take the 0 in net, and then play $2,500 skaters after that. So if you're taking like 3 Dallas guys or the expensive guys from Ottawa or something like that, you do need super cheap players. Donato, Dickinson, Mikheyev does make sense to me because you're right. They have been good offensively, 63 shot attempts, 3.1 expected goals per 60. Donato, I was looking earlier, I think it's 9 points his last 8 games. Like they've been pretty productive recently. They do get ice time, 17 to 19 minutes a game, give or take, which, it was 5 points in his last 8 games. Can't even read my own writing sometimes. I thought it sounded a little high, but they do get ice time. They're under 10K. I'm not super concerned about any matchups on the St. Louis side, so I do think Chicago 2 is playable. It's Chicago 1 I'm most interested in because I don't think they're going to see a ton of the Thomas matchup, which is really the only matchup I'm worried about. You get into the depth from St. Louis. Obviously, the third pair has struggled quite a bit. The third defense pair struggled quite a bit. His top line has played 55 minutes without Bedard, so it's not a big sample yet, but 3.4 expected goals, 66 shot attempts per 60. Like they've been able to score. Tyler Bertuzzi just had that hat trick. If you look at their recent games, 3 goals, 2 goals, 3 goals, 2 goals, 3 goals, like they're getting on the board. They're not filling the net, but you don't need them to fill the net when the top line, the most expensive line Chicago has is 11,300. You need, if you have one perfectly correlated goal with a handful of shots scattered about, you're fine. If you get 2, like you're absolutely laughing. So I don't mind Chicago 1 here. I think they're a nice filler, 17 to 19 minutes a game. You get 2 out of the 3 guys on the top power play unit. So for me to go Chicago 1, then Chicago 2. The only line I have any real interest in on the St. Louis side is the top line, just because when I said Slafkovsky was top 20 for creating scoring chances per shot attempt over the last season and a half, 2 of the other names in the top 20 were both Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou. They've been really, really good at doing pretty well with very little. Now, obviously, Kyrou's not having a great season. Thomas is only on pace for like 65 points or something like that. They're definitely not having the years that they normally do. And that's the thing that's kind of just nagging me like in the back of my head, is that this is Spencer Knight, who, he's not been the same goalie over the last month that he was earlier in the season, but he's still been a top 5 goalie in the NHL. And then this is the St. Louis Blues, the lowest scoring team in the league this season. It's like, how excited should I be to really go out and play St. Louis here? They're coming in basically bang on their top 2 stack percentage. I would probably just rather go play Montreal too. I'm going to be honest. They're going to get similar ice time, and at least they're in a significantly better scoring environment than St. Louis is. But whenever Kyrou and Thomas are together, I do have some interest in them. So the only thing I have interest in on St. Louis side is St. Louis 1, but they're going to go out against Dickinson. Chicago has a really, really good penalty kill in case St. Louis decides they want to try to play on the power play at any point. Montreal 2 doesn't really have any of those concerns. So I guess St. Louis 1 is fine. I don't really have a lot of interest in the Blues here. For me, I have more interest in the Chicago side, and Chicago 1 and Chicago 2.
Tend to agree with you there. What a game. Ottawa Senators with a 2.9 total heading into Utah. The Mammoth have a 3.1. Ottawa put their lines into a blender for tonight's game. They are not updated yet in the data hub because they came out right before the show. They are going Stützle, Batherson, Cousins, Kachuk, Pinto, Zetterland, and then Amadio, Grieg, Giroux. Utah going Keller, Schmaltz, Krause, Genther, Peterka, Hayton, then Carconi, McBain, and Cheeks. No real need for that line here tonight, but I still mention them because they have been fairly good. And by fairly, they have been really good. Let me just see if I can figure out. It's 18-9 for that new top line for Ottawa, fully correlated double center. You know, the goaltending for Utah has not been great. That top line, Keller and Schmaltz have generally been fairly good defensively this season in a large sample. I would imagine they're going to see most of that Stützle matchup, just because, Hayton, Genther, Peterka in a small sample have not been good defensively, which isn't a giant shocker to anyone. But, I don't know how good of a power play matchup it is for Ottawa anyway. It's just, the goaltending hasn't been great. I don't mind going to that second line. Pinto, Tkachuk, and Zetterlund. That line is, let me see if I can do math, 17-4. It seems a little expensive, though. Yeah, I didn't even realize that Pinto was 4,900 and Zetterlund was 4K. It's just expensive, because Brady Tkachuk is 8,500. But they do get that secondary matchups for Utah, which is advantageous for them. I don't know. I would probably go to that second line just because, Tkachuk is there. They're a little bit less expensive. They get better 5-on-5 matchups. But I generally don't like to play teams that just decide to put together lines that don't have very big samples. It's just a personal choice. Like obviously when teams start the season with new players, it's gonna happen. But like in the middle of the season at this point, I don't know how much of a sample Pinto, Tkachuk, and Zetterlund have. You know what I mean? It's probably minuscule. Maybe it works out. It's just not something I'd chance at that price. At that point, I just go play Montreal or Dallas or something like that. It's just a personal preference. If you like them, you can play them. I don't mind. In a nutshell, I don't mind the Ottawa lines. It's just the price on the road. Not a huge fan. On the Mammoth side, I think, it's not the best 5-on-5 matchup for the top line because Sanderson and Zub have been arguably the best defensive pair in the league so far this season. But it is a good power play matchup. So I think that is kind of important. I would probably just power play stack, go Schmaltz, Keller, Genther, Schmaltz, Keller, Peterka. I'd find a way to get Genther in there. Maybe I go Schmaltz, Peterka, Genther, full-on 5-man power play stack. The goaltending for Ottawa isn't great. I don't love their 5-on-5 matchup, but their power play matchup is good. The problem is, Utah's power play has been pretty bad. That's the one thing that is giving me pause there. But if I was going to do anything on Utah, it would be a power play stack.
Yeah, I always don't like slates where I like the Ottawa Senators, and this is actually a slate where I like the Ottawa. It's not that I really love the spot for the Sens. It's the fact that no one's playing them. Whatever else we might think of Ottawa, there is no ownership, no ownership coming on this team, right? I'm just looking at the ownership right now. Jake Sanderson's going to be in double digits. Thomas Chabot might be between 3 and 5%. Every single Ottawa skater, every single Ottawa forward is under 2% ownership. Under 2% ownership on a 5-game slate, facing goaltending that has straight up been bad this year. It honestly doesn't matter who starts. Doesn't matter who starts for Utah. 883 save percentage for Vanacek, 894 for Vejmelka. The goals saved above expected are fine. but the save percentages are not. And it's the save percentage that determines whether the puck that goes in the net or not. And that's all that matters for DFS. Like, it's not that I really love the Sens here, but if we're going to get them at 0.5%, 1.5% on a 5-game slate, like, it's pretty hard to ignore, especially where the Sens are drawing the power play opportunities that they are, right? Like 3.7 per game over the last 5 weeks. It's the second highest rate in the league. 3.4 per game over the course of the season. It's the 5th highest rate in the league. Now, Utah has a good penalty kill, but if Ottawa gets 4 or 5 cracks at it, all they have to do is go 1 for 4, 1 for 5. And, that's the start of a pretty good night. And Utah has been using the Mikhail Sergachev, Sean Durzi defense pair in a shutdown role. I don't know if anybody's looked at the Utah defensive numbers with Keller, Schmaltz, and Sergachev on the ice, but they're not good. Expected goals against are below average. Goals against are worse because the goaltending has not been that good. So, like, it's just the problem. It's like, do you stack the Stützle line and then play an Ottawa stack without Brady Tkachuk? That feels like it might kind of suck, but Tkachuk stuck with Shane Pinto. Like, if you look at Tkachuk and Pinto's numbers together over the last couple of years, like, they've been pretty good. Not a big sample, though. Most of the minutes came last year, so we don't really know what it's going to be like. Batherson, Stützle, and Cousins is really interesting to me just because there's no ownership, right? Like, under 20K, in line with, like, Dallas, depending on what they do, Shane, or in line with San Jose. And those lines are coming in with 10x the ownership, right? If I was 20 maxing, I absolutely have at least one Ottawa stack, at least one. Single entry, I'm still considering them. If nobody's going to play Ottawa, whatever, like I said, whatever else we might think of the Sens, like 0.5% ownership, 1% ownership, 2% ownership max on guys like Stützle and Tkachuk and Cousins, who are all having great seasons. I'm pretty tempted to go with the Stützle line here, and it's purely ownership driven. Like, if nobody's going to play them, then I'm very, very interested. On the Utah side, I think I kind of agree with just straight up 5-man power play stacking. I'm not even sure you have to play Sergachev. Like, he's having a decent season. It's not a great season. But at 5,300, like, it's hard to argue against it. But, like, they're all reasonably priced. It is a good power play spot. Utah above average drawing power play opportunities over the last 5 weeks. Over the course of the season, right around league average. Obviously, we know of Ottawa's penalty killing problems. I'd be pretty tempted to just straight up 5-man power play stack. I don't think you necessarily have to play Peterka. If you want to just do Keller, Schmaltz, Genther, I think that's fine. Also, got to keep an eye on news. Dylan Genther missed like 10 minutes of the game last game. He left the bench, some sort of injury, came back and played the final couple shifts, but it's one of those things you always worry about. Either way, Keller, Schmaltz, and Genther is probably where I would go here. And, like, it's not even that expensive of a stack, right? Like, 19,200. It's basically in line with what you get from Ottawa, but they're going to come in with a lot more ownership. That's the only thing that's kind of drawing me back here. I guess considering nobody, like, if Ottawa was like 9% ownership, I think that's a bit more of a question. But, like, if we're talking like literally 1% to 2% ownership, like, I have more interest in the Ottawa side than the Utah side here. So I would go Ottawa 1, then Utah power play is where my interest is here. I like Utah 3 is in play just because they're super cheap. You can play them with Dallas. That's about it. But for me, it's the Ottawa top line.
San Jose Sharks with a 2.5 total heading into Los Angeles. The Kings have a 3.6. Sharks won last night. They'll probably run back Celebrini, Eklund, Chernyshov, Toffoli, Wenberg, Regenda. Kings are a mess. Kopitar and Armia and Perry are probably – well, Perry's for sure out. They put him on like a non-roster type deal. I don't know what's going on there. Kopitar and Armia got hurt last game. They called up Taylor Ward and someone else. Andre Lee, right? And then there's beat reporters speculating that Taylor Ward could get a run with Laferriere and Kempe tonight. This guy is a 27-year-old undrafted free agent, like that they signed a few years ago. It's like I don't know what their lines are going to be. You would think they would load up a Byfield line, but we really don't know. And it's the late game, and there's a ton of ownership. And Nedeljkovic went last night, so it's going to be my brain is Askarov here tonight. I don't know. Like, I guess you could do like a Byfield, Fiala, Kuzmenko, or like Laferriere, Kempe, Byfield. I don't know what the lines are going to be. And based off the ownership we have right now, 37, 50, almost half the field is going to have some sort of Kings player in there. I guess if you're MMEing, you kind of have to have a CSV ready for the Kings because you probably can get a fairly low-owned combo here. I don't even know if Ward and the other guy are in the Andre Lee are in the player pool. Yeah, I kind of agree with got to get this win. I'd say whatever line Turcotte or Byfield are centering and go about the day. It's just like, who are they going to be centering? If you're playing one lineup, do you really want to stay up until the middle of the night to figure that out? It's a good matchup. It's just like, are the Kings really worth staying up that late to do it? At that ownership, I don't think so.
You just want to go to bed early.
Yeah, I'm getting old, man. If it is Turcotte, Kuzmenko, Fiala at 12,100, I guess I would play them. But like, I just don't know the lines. It makes me uncomfortable that these guys are called up. They may go 11-7. I just don't know. So like, I honestly, like, I want to tell you what to be able to do with the Kings. I legit have no clue. But based off the ownership, I'm kind of leaning towards fading them or just, waiting and seeing who Byfield or Turcotte are centering and go about the day. On the Shark side, it's back to San Jose 1. The problem is they're going to see a fair bit of that Mikey Anderson-Doughty pairing, but like it's their best line by far. 21.9% top two, 14.4% projected ownership. I know Chernyshov went with the old donut last night, but I know Celebrini got there on the empty net, but that would be the line. But at that price range, I probably just go play Ottawa or Dallas or something like that. So like, as much as I have some interest in both sides, there's just too many question marks for me.
Yeah, I saw Zach Dooley, who covers the Kings, said he was saying Taylor Ward might play with Kempe and Laferriere, so that would get at least one line combination down. Ward and Andre Lee are not in the player pool. We'll see if DraftKings adds them in the next 4.5 hours. I probably wouldn't play them. The way I would approach the Kings is, got to get this win said, just play Turcotte or Byfield or center. I'd be tempted to just put like 3 or 4 Kings guys and just not even give a shit like what lines they're on. Like just play like Byfield, Fiala, and like Warren Fogle or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even care if they're a line or not, because those are the guys that are going to get ice time, right? The Kings basically just play 3 lines. Like their fourth line will get like 8, 9, 10 minutes. It's their top 3 lines that get all the ice time. If they're missing Kopitar and Armia and Perry, 3 guys that would be part of that, they're basically down to 2 lines. Like, they're going to play the third line, hopefully a little bit more, but like I could see Byfield and Kempe and Fiala all playing over 20 minutes here tonight. Like that's kind of the thing is I don't like playing super chalk Kings. But if those guys are all going to get heavy ice time against a San Jose team playing a back-to-back, I do think you have to consider, like, even if you just want to like one-off Kevin Fiala or just one-off Quentin Byfield, like I think you can do that. These guys are going to get heavy minutes, and this is a really good matchup. If I were to play any of the lines as we have them currently constructed, it would be Fiala, Kuzmenko, Turcotte. Turcotte and Fiala, just over 90 minutes together, 2.8 expected goals, 67 shot attempts per 60. Fiala averaging, 2.7 shots per game over his last 16 games. But just do a two-man of Turcotte Fiala. They'll probably stick together. Turcotte might actually get good ice time here tonight. It's those guys that are going to get the minutes. It's not going to be the new guys. So for the Kings, I would probably just take 2 or 3 of the 5 highest projected forwards, put them in my lineup, and just not even care where they're slotted. Because even if Taylor Ward starts on the top line, unless the Kings are up 4 or 5-0 halfway through the game, these lines are going to get moved around. They go 11-7. They're going to do a bunch of different combinations. I'm not super concerned about the even strength lines. I'm just concerned about playing the top guys that are going to get minutes. So Byfield, Fiala, Kempe, obviously, Laferriere, those guys are going to get heavy minutes here tonight. On the San Jose side, I'm pretty tempted to do some sort of power play stack here. Obviously, Alex Wenberg went nuts last night. It wasn't Tyler Toffoli. Wenberg had a goal and 2 assists. But the Kings, 3.8 times shorthanded per game over the last 5 weeks. After last night, tied with the Bruins for the highest rate in the league. Kings, second most time shorthanded per game over the course of the season. Because of that, the Kings, over the course of the season, 5th highest rate of power play goals against per game over the last 5 weeks. 2nd highest rate of power play goals against per game. This is a great power play spot for San Jose. Surprise, surprise. The power play scored with Dmitry Orlov last night. Don't know why they didn't go to that 3 months ago, but that's neither here nor there. So Celebrini, Eklund, plus Wenberg, plus Toffoli. If you want to just do the San Jose top line, add in Wenberg, add in Toffoli. Just do a San Jose straight up power play stack. I think you can do that. I don't really like Celebrini going up against Anderson and Drew Doughty. Man, the last couple of games I've watched Macklin Celebrini, there's not a player in the world that can shut that guy down. He's doing spinorama cross ice passes that are zipped along tape to tape, 40-foot passes. It is absolutely insane.
Yeah, he's disgusting.
It's I can't believe it. The guy's 19 years old, and he's making plays that you'll see maybe a half dozen players in the NHL that are 7-8 years older than him actually pull off. I don't really like the matchup. I'm not super concerned about it. What concerns me more is that it's a road back-to-back. But for me, it's some sort of San Jose power play stack. I start with Celebrini, and I build around that. Whether I go Toffoli plus Wenberg, whether I have put Eklund along with him and then throw in Toffoli or Wenberg, all 4 guys, something like that. The Kings are just taking way, way, way too many penalties. And now with Orlov on the top power play unit, hopefully the Sharks can start scoring some more power play goals. So for me, it's some sort of San Jose power play stack. On the Kings side, it's just literally putting in 2 or 3 of their high minute players like Fiala, like Byfield, like Laferriere, like Kempe, and just not even caring about what the even strength lines are.
Yep. Let's talk about defensemen here. There are 3 guys, 6K and up. It is Jacob Chychrun, Miro Heiskanen, and Jake Sanderson. It's pretty easily Jake Sanderson for me. I think Chychrun's fine. I'd go Sanderson 1, Chychrun 2, Heiskanen 3. I see a lot more value to me in the mid-range and the cheap guys here tonight. But if you had to spend up for one of them, for me, it would undoubtedly be Jake Sanderson. Again, I think Chychrun's fine, especially in Washington stacks, but Sanderson for me.
Yeah, of 3 defensemen over 6K, Sanderson has the best point per dollar value on Stokastic tonight. Chychrun has a slightly higher projection. I think both are fine depending what you want to do, how much salary you have, and all that. I'd be kind of tempted to play Chychrun, just because Utah does have a good penalty kill. Ottawa is a very power play merchant team. Washington is not a power play merchant team. You know what I mean? So that's why I'd be kind of tempted to go Chychrun over Sanderson, but it's those 2 far ahead of Heiskanen. The mid-price range, you're right, is very interesting. Noah Dobson for defensemen 4 to 6K, Noah Dobson leads by overall projection and points per $1,000. So that's the guy on the second power play unit for Montreal. He's averaging 2 blocks per game and is pacing for over 50 points. That's why. So, you don't necessarily have to play Lane Hudson. Rasmus Anderson really sticks out to me. I do worry about block shots. Montreal typically doesn't create high shot volume. And Anderson, if he doesn't block shots, he needs multiple points to pay off his price. And that does concern me, but Anderson's fine. It's the guys 4 to 5K I have more interest in. Brant Clark, his point per dollar projection is the second highest in that price range behind Dobson. Justin Falk, Chicago's not a good defensive team. Falk at least puts up a lot of peripherals, even if he doesn't score. So I think Falk is fine. Mike Matheson at 4,500. No, he's not on the top power play unit, but he plays a lot of minutes. And Montreal is one of those teams that activates its defensemen almost more than almost any other in the league. Sub 4K, Philip Broberg is at the top. Again, Philip Broberg and Colton Parayko have the two highest projections for a defenseman priced under 4K here tonight. I get it because it's Chicago, but it's also the St. Louis Blues. So, I would probably lean to Broberg. Both are fine. Matt Roy from Washington at 3K is always in play. Levshunov, I think, is playable for 3,500. Dmitry Orlov is probably the guy for me in that 3 to 4K range, just because of the top power play time. The Sharks might get 3, 4, 5 power plays here tonight. Under 5K, Alex Carrier is always in play when he's under 3K. Cam Fowler and Rasmus Sandin rounding things out in Washington.
Let's talk about goalies here. Again, don't really like the expensive guys. You got the King starter up there, Jacob Fowler, the Blues starter. Those are the guys 8K and up. I just don't really prefer that. I guess it would be the Kings, whether it's Kemper or Forsberg. But the problem is, they take a lot of penalties, and the Sharks with Orlov have a much better power play. So I probably wouldn't even spend up into the top range there. I'd probably start at Casey DeSmith at 7,800. Both goalies in that game, Logan Thompson at 7,600. It does concern me how poor Washington has been defensively, especially with all the injuries. But Dallas has lost a bunch of games in a row, so don't mind either goalie in that game. I think Spencer Knight is fine. Dustin Wolf is fine. And then, listen, with all the players missing for the Sharks and Askarov being 7K, he might actually, be one of my favorite plays on the night. I know Sharks are back-to-back on the road, and they aren't a very good defensive team. But, it seems like if the Sharks can win, you don't need Askarov to save 45 or 46. He can do 2 goals on 31 shots or something like that. So it is, again, another night where the cheap guys are my preferred play here in that.
Yeah. I think the one expensive guy I really have interest in is Jacob Fowler. At the risk of sounding like a Montreal homer, he has looked really good in his limited games since being called up by Montreal. He does have the second highest projection of any goalie and the highest point per dollar projection. So I think if I'm going to pay up, Fowler at 8,200 makes sense. I don't want to overlook Vejmelka here, just because Ottawa, their fantasy values derive from the power play. Utah typically has a pretty good penalty kill. If Utah can limit the damage at 5-on-5, I think Vejmelka can have a good game here. So it's probably Fowler or Vejmelka for me in that upper end. The lower end, though, Spencer Knight for 7,400, he has the 4th highest projection of any goalie here tonight, and he's 7,400. Spencer Knight at home against the lowest scoring team in the NHL, sounds good to me. And then, Askarov as well, 7K. If you need a super cheap goalie, I feel like if San Jose wins that game, it's not going to be 7-5. You know what I mean? It's going to be 4-1 or 4-2 or something like that. So if you need a super cheap goalie, I think Askarov is the guy. But Spencer Knight, 7,400 makes a lot of sense.
We will be back tomorrow, 12-game slate. Hate that for us. Who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
I'm going to go to a guy that I think might be traded by the trade deadline, but he's having a sneaky, very good season. I'm going to say Blake Coleman.
Pickles. I'm going to go to our favorite gambler, Shane Pinto.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, we will be back tomorrow, 12 game slate. Good luck, everybody, tonight. We'll see you in the Discord.
Good luck tonight, everyone.